Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Cydney and I just want to preface this video with it's almost 2 o'clock in the morning on December 1st. I recorded this video on November 30th and then I went to see the Renaissance film and I got home and started editing this and I did not like it. So I decided to refilm it, but I don't believe in I don't know, body checking, I'm sorry that I have a pimple, but listen, these eyes are bloodshot. We're gonna ignore it. I'm exhausted, but we're gonna ignore it. I just wanted to give this little introduction, if you will, to tell you that I'm not stoned, I'm just tired. I'm gonna break up this video into 2 sections. The first section is gonna be the books that I DNF'd, and the second section is gonna be the books that I read. The books that I DNF'd for this month are Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister, and it was literally just truly the wrong place, the wrong time. I was not feeling that. I knew ahead of time that it was time traveling, but when I started reading the book, I was like, I can't read this right now. So I stopped. It might be a book that I pick up in the future. I just was not interested in it right now. Another book I DNF'd was Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. Is it Hastings? Or, it's Hastings. And I got about 6 chapters into Magnolia Parks and I was like, what's going on here? I was very, very alarmed by what I read in Magnolia Parks, and I've seen people compare it to Gossip Girl. It was nothing like that to me. I think I can see that it was trying to be like Gossip Girl, but it just wasn't like that for me, and I don't know, it was just strange. I see why it's popular. I think that there are certain types of books that become very popular. I can see the appeal of that, but it was not good. It wasn't written well. I didn't enjoy the characters. And I think it's high time that we get away from branding toxicity as love. So did not like it. The next book I DNF'd is The Worst Kept Secret by QB Tyler. This is a best friend's father. So the best friend is a boy and he is in love with the female main character, but she wants his dad. And I just couldn't. I think I got 50% through. Couldn't do it. Don't recommend. Next book I DNF'd was To Conquer a Bride by Naima Simone. It is a pirate romance. It is a brother's bride tale, and it was boring. Okay, I did not care about those characters. I did not care about their troubles. I didn't care about the treasure that they were hunting for. I just couldn't. I think I was almost finished with that. I think I was 60% or 70% through it, and I was like, I'm not enjoying this. And I don't believe in reading, pushing through, unless rage, is born, and then rage inspires me to finish a book, but I didn't want to be enraged. The next book I DNF'd was Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin, and I found this book to be alarming. I think I read 6 chapters of it, and the male main character walks such a fine line of being an incel. I don't know how to explain that better, but I think the male main character is a bit of an incel. He was one more rejection away from being a Reddit incel. I don't know, he scared me. I think that Gabrielle Zevin is clearly very intelligent and clearly very skilled at writing, but that does not always make for it doesn't always make for a digestible, interesting book when it is packed heavy with SAT words and I don't know, it was just okay, you're smart. And I don't want to, disparage her or make her feel like she shouldn't write that way, because there are people who there are people who love that book. I'm in the minority here. It just wasn't for me. Next book I DNF'd was The Stranger Upstairs by Lisa M. Matlin, and my only complaint with that is I just did not enjoy the writing. Okay, so before I move into my review section of this video, I did want to show you guys a little craft that I made, just something unique that I haven't seen on BookTube before. I've been watching Dancing with the Stars this season, and I haven't watched Dancing with the Stars since high school. But anyway, I was really inspired by the star signs that they have, so I did go ahead and make some star signs for my reading wrap-ups and book reviews. I'm really excited to use them. I hope that you like them. I just wanted to do something creative and fun that I've never seen before. I'm not going to go in any particular order, just because I just don't care to, but I will start with the audiobook that I read this month, which was Worthy by Jada Pinkett Smith. And let me just start by saying, y'all can never make me hate the Smiths, okay? Like, I know that people really dislike them, and I get that it's really like common to say like everything I know about Will and Jada is against my will, but if you think about it, like these are two people who never talked about anything. They never addressed any rumors. They never spoke up for themselves for like 30 years. And so now both of them have decided to come out on the other side of healing and addressing issues and trauma, and they're, making their own voices heard. They are controlling their own narrative for the first time, and I love it. I really enjoyed this. I thought Jada is a very profound and prolific writer. She's very interesting. She's very unlike anyone that I know. This book really explores the ways that trauma impacts your life. This book speaks about addiction, patriarchy, survival, poverty, inner cities. I love Jada's dedication to following her own joy at all times. If I were you going into this book, I would ignore the sensationalism and just dive in. I rated this book 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I can't recommend it enough. The next book I'm going to talk about is And Then There Was Me by Cydney Johnson. This is a literary fiction, like women's literary fiction, about sisterhood, Black sisterhood, and friendship. There is infidelity, there is alternative pregnancy. This explores different Black identities within the Black diaspora. This book explores eating disorders and recovery, but I rate this book 5 stars. I think that Cydney Johnson is one of the most prolific writers out right now, and she is painfully underrated. Like, not enough people talk about Cydney Johnson and the work that she's putting out right now. This is from 2017, and it just reads like a very fresh, modern book. And this book is based in New Jersey. If you don't know, I'm a Jersey girl, so I absolutely love this. Cannot recommend this enough. The next book I'm going to talk about is The Perfect Child by Lucinda Berry. Lucinda Berry is a former trauma psychologist, and this is the second book I've read from her. The first one was Appetite for Innocence, which was amazing. This book kind of explores the fact that some people are just born bad. Like, some people are born with a desire to hurt other people, and it kind of has nothing to do with nature or nurture, which I think is very much what's taught in like psychology. But she wrote this in such a responsible way. Like, it never occurred to me that sometimes people could just be born with the desire to hurt other people. So long story short, this is about a nurse and a doctor. They're married, they have infertility issues, and then one day a little girl comes into the ER. She's the victim of child abuse, and they decide to foster and then adopt her. The child is sus, as you can imagine. The husband,
Let's talk about the husband.
Oh, wait, excuse me? Did you just say let's talk about the husband?
Let's not talk about what you don't want out.
the more that I read thriller novels, the more I dislike husbands. They do not like their wives. They disbelieve everything that their wives say. They gaslight their wives full time. Like, if the husband was being a surgeon full time, he was working 2 different full-time jobs of being a surgeon and being the #1 op for his wife. I think I'm getting very weighed down by books like that. Like, if you don't like your wife, please leave that lady alone. Don't put her in a situation where you're not listening to her and then something bad happens. I rated this book 3.75 stars. It is extremely well written, but I hated it. I hated the husband. The little girl was, oh my God, she was bad, y'all. Like, she was real bad. I definitely recommend reading it because I think it's just a me thing. I think that if you're not somebody who reads a lot of thrillers, or you're not overtired of the trope of like the gaslighting husband, I think you will really enjoy this book. It's amazing. It's just, I got exhausted and at the end of the book, I was like, I hated this. The next book I'm going to talk about is My Darling Girl by Jennifer McMahon. And I want to start off by saying, I don't know why I thought this was a thriller. It's definitely a horror. And on the back of the book, it does say Thrills and Chills. This is a book of the month pick. But still, in my mind, I was like, this is a thriller. There's blood on the cover, so that's thrilling. No, it's a horror. I think it actually might be a thriller, but it's a horror. About a woman who was raised by a mother who was abusive. Memories of her mom being very loving and very kind, and then memories of her mom being extremely cruel and abusive. And she's now an adult, she has her own family, and she gets a call one day that her mom is dying and she wants to, die at her. She wants to die with her daughter. Like, she wants to make up for lost time, trying to get in a good space before she passes away. As you can imagine, that's not what happens here. There is a paranormal aspect of this book that I wasn't expecting because I thought it was a thriller. So I think for that reason, I thought it was stupid and I was really disappointed by it. However, the ending of this book is insane. It is absolutely insane. And again, I think this is just another case of this is really well written. It just wasn't for me. And I think that someone else would really, really enjoy this if you know what to expect going into it. So I rated this 2 stars. I didn't hate it, or I did hate it. No, I actually hated it. But I don't think it's poorly written. It's actually very well written. It just was not for me. The next book I'm going to be talking about is The Intern by Michelle Campbell. This is a legal thriller. This tries to be some kind of deep state conspiracy, cover-up crime type of thing that I didn't care for. I did not care for the female main character. I thought she was very childish and selfish. Like, her brother, basically the gist of the story is the female main character wants to be a lawyer. She becomes an intern for a judge, and this judge just so happens to be presiding over the case for her brother, who has been arrested and falsely charged with a crime he didn't commit. So her own career ambitions at times went above her desire for her brother's freedom and the safety of her brother, and I didn't understand that, and so I didn't like her. She also suffers from oldest daughter syndrome, and I don't know. I didn't like it. This is not poorly written. This is just not the story for me. Would have really liked this book if it was solely about the judge. But like I said, I didn't hate this book, so I rated it 3 stars. I think, again, this is just a case of a book that's not for me, but other people might really like it. The next book I'm going to talk about is Let Us Descend by Jesmyn Ward. This is a historical fiction / magical realism type of book. It's about a girl named Annis. She's an enslaved girl who is sold by her father, who is also her enslaver. This is well written to a fault. Like, I feel like this is very similar to Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, where it is overly descriptive. There are a lot of words being used here in a way that's like, can you use that word that way? Sometimes when things are being described, especially when like there's something magical or paranormal happening, you don't even know what's happening because there's so much description that is confusing. You just don't know what's going on sometimes. However, this was a powerful story. I do think that the core of the story is amazing, and I do think it's worthy of a read, but we spent so much time with Annis, who's the main character, and I don't feel like we knew much about her at the end of the book. I really, really loved how all of the enslaved people in the book had their own wants, desires, fears. They all had a life. You know, they were all so alive on the pages. I really, really enjoyed that about this book. I didn't really care for the magical realism aspect of this book. I'd hoped that it would focus on, you know, African traditional spirituality or, you know, deities that are popular like the Orishas or something. And instead we got like really confusing deities that I was not here for. However, this is a beautiful cover. Jesmyn Ward is obviously a very talented and skilled writer, and I really enjoyed this book. I rated this 4 stars. Definitely recommend. Just be wary of the fact that sometimes you're not going to know what's going on, It doesn't really take away from the story, but it is going to be frustrating. So the next book I'm going to be talking about is None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. This is the first book I've ever read from Lisa Jewell, and I will be back. Okay, I really enjoyed her writing. I really enjoyed the pace of her book. I thought this was very interesting, but I hated the ending. But this is a common, I don't know, thriller theme that I'm seeing right now of a podcaster who gets over involved in the life of the subject of the pod. And this book is about Alex and Josie. These are two women who are the exact same age, born in the same hospital on the same day. And they end up celebrating their 45th birthday at the same restaurant. And then a couple of days later, Josie tracks down Alex and requests to be on her podcast. If I were you, I would look up trigger warnings about this book because it is a bit of a heavy read. However, everything is written for the most part in a very appropriate way, but there are some topics of this book that are not addressed properly, in my opinion. There were certain parts of this book that I felt like no matter what, we should be able to draw a line in the sand and say this is wrong. Even if that person is not a great person, what happened to them was wrong. And I don't feel like this book did that enough for me, so it made me uncomfortable sometimes. There were a lot of loose ends at the end of this book, and I didn't like that. However, there was room for interpretation, which I loved. So I hated it, and I both hated and loved the way that the ending was, because it allowed me to fill the gaps in with my writer's mind. And in my mind, I probably made this book a lot more crazy than Lisa Jewell ever intended, but that's what happens when you don't tie up loose ends. I rated this book 4.25 stars. The next book I'm going to be talking about is The Kingmaker by Kennedy Ryan. This is a contemporary romance. It is a political type of book, and I really enjoyed the political aspect of this book. I know that some people complained about that. However, all books, every single book, even a Dr. Seuss book, is political. So when books are overtly political and it's clear what stances they're taking or what, kind of undertones you should be looking out for, I appreciate that. So I appreciated the political slant in this book. It is about a Native American woman who is an advocate for missing Native women. She also advocates against pipeline construction. The male main character is the son of an oil tycoon. So when these two people fell in love, I was not buying it. The dialogue was cringy at times. I've only ever read one book from Kennedy Ryan, and it was Before I Let Go, which was masterfully written. There were no parts of that book that I disliked. This one, however, I feel like it bears the brunt of end of new adult fiction heyday. This book is from 2019, and it feels like it's from 2019 because the romance landscape has changed so much in such a short amount of time, that when books like these exist and you read them, they feel old. And I think that this book suffers from that fate, unfortunately. The way that things are written in this book, I don't feel like would be written that way now. I don't want to speak for Kennedy Ryan, so I'm not going to say that, but she is such a skilled writer. I don't feel like this is the caliber of work that she would put out now. Also, I felt like the discussion around the age gap, specifically because the female main character is underage at the beginning of the book, and the male main character flirts with her a little bit, and so the rest of the book we hear I can't believe you were only 17, oh my god, you're so young, and it just okay, we get it. It was just uncomfortable after a while. You can tell that this book was very heavily researched. Again, Kennedy Ryan is so talented at what she does. There are moments in this book that really shine. You can see, she's so skilled. But this was not for me. I rated this book 3.5 stars. There is a second book in this series that I plan to read probably sometime at the beginning of next year. But yeah, that was not for me. Hopefully, I like the second book better. I've heard people say that the second book is better, so I'm holding out hope, and I'm not giving up on Kennedy Ryan. The next book that I'm going to be talking about, I read on my Kindle, and it was Praised by Sarah Kate. This is a contemporary romance / erotica. It is son's ex-girlfriend with, obviously, the father. It is horrendously written, horrendously bad, babe. very, very poorly written. Cannot stress enough how bad it was written. And I don't even feel like I can tell you what specifically was bad about the writing, because just all of it was bad. All of it was bad. The whole plot of the story is that the father and a group of his friends, they were all laid off from their jobs. So these newly unemployed people decided to start a sex club. And the son is ashamed of the father because he views his dad's sexual proclivities as demeaning to women or something. It's not like he's a feminist or anything like that. Like, he doesn't really care about women. He just is embarrassed that his dad likes to spank women, I guess. I don't know. It didn't make sense. If I could have given the 0 stars, I would have. I finished reading this book because rage fueled me, okay? It was injected into me like a shot of adrenaline, and it powered me to continue. But I hated everything about this book. There was nothing I loved about this book. Charlie is a classic Mary Sue pick-me. She's very 50 Shades of Grey, 2013 coded, like, oh, I'm so innocent, and I don't know how, but even though I'm innocent, I'm just perfect for this man in front of me, and I just can't wait till he knows it. Like, Emerson, who is the father and the male main character love interest, is awful. He is literally so weak and so weird. He spends majority of the book begging his son for affection. Please accept me. Please love me. It was very strange. It was very weird. I mean, I know that as a parent, like, I'm not a parent, but I know that as a parent, your love for your children is supposed to be unconditional. But I don't know that if you're supposed to beg them to talk to you if they're not talking to you all the time. Like, every chance he got, Emerson was hounding Charlie, like, have you heard from my son? Does he miss me? No. He thinks you're weird, and you are. This book had very odd verbiage around sex workers and sex work in general. Like, it's always in these books, it's always that the female main character can be the male main character's little slut, but like, being a slut in real life is not allowed. Like, if you're a slut for a living, off with their head. And I don't like that. You cannot have a sex forward, sex positive book and be disparaging to people who do that for a living. It's not allowed. You're going to hell if you do that. Did you know that? End of this book gave Tubi. Like, not Lifetime Movie Network. It gave Tubi. It was so outlandish. Like, these people were in the front yard arguing. Call the police. These people are arguing in the front lawn. I was so enraged. I was so enraged when I read this book. I was so enraged when I wrote this review. And I'm going to read you an excerpt so you can tell. So the excerpt I'm going to pick is me talking about Charlie being a Mary Sue pick-me, which I already mentioned. In my opinion, it incorporates the most, like, the issues with this book, and like, it tries really hard to be progressive. Every time there's an opportunity for that, it is contrived and like very concerning. So Charlie, the female main character, is insufferable. She's childish, strange, naive, and such a Mary Sue pick-me. This read like a Wattpad post 50 Shades of Grey craze self-insert, which, if you read Wattpad, you know what a self-insert is. It's always bad. She's so innocent, but stunningly beautiful. Not Good to See You Again 2013. And no amount of convincing will ever get her to see that, because her dad left the family due to her younger sister doing the unthinkable. Oh, also, surprise, the sister is trans, and Charlie is such an ally that she won't work for the male main character unless he's LGBTQ friendly. Mind you, she literally is like, do you accept LGBT people? If you don't, then I won't work for you. Did I mention that she works for him? Like, she takes a job with him because she needs the money, because the son is a bum. And before they broke up, he wasn't paying any bills. She was paying all the bills, even though his dad is like literally a millionaire from a sex club. I'm starting to get lightheaded because I'm not breathing while I'm talking about this book, and it's just like irritating me even more. She won't work for the mumming character unless he's LGBTQ friendly, but the only other quote-unquote allyship she displays is having a lesbianic makeout session with another woman with the sole purpose of making the mumming character jealous. We heart tropes for tropes' sake. Like... I just wish that we lived in a world where we could say, like, this book was bad, but I enjoyed it. Like, I'm not faulting the people who enjoy this book, but I need you to say that it's bad. Because I enjoy bad books from time to time. And I can say this book was not the best, but I enjoyed it because it was juicy, or it was colorful, or it was fun, or it was informative. Like, books don't always have to be good. Oh, I love a bad movie, okay? I was raised with Lifetime Movie Network in my milk as a child. If it's entertaining, I can get jiggy with it. We have to be able to say when books are bad, even if we enjoy them. Okay? Let's do that. Because there's no way in the world this should be as popular as it is. Like, it is concerning. Books are so wonderful because you can get something from a book that another person will absolutely hate it. I don't think that's the case here. This is objectively bad, and this is objectively alarming, and we have to be able to say that, even if you still enjoy it. That's all I'm gonna say. The next book I'm going to be talking about is a book that I got from the library called You Shouldn't Have Come Here by Geneva Rose. The only other book I've read from Geneva Rose is One of Us is Dead, and I rated that 4.25 stars. So I really enjoyed that one. I thought it was really unique at the time and well written. This was not that. The first 50% of this book is super solid. Like, it laid a great foundation. I was engaged. I thought the characters were strange, but I was willing, again, like I just said, I'm willing to stick with the book, even if it's not the best. If the story is storying, if the characters are charactering, if the juice is juicing, like, I can stick with it. And the first 50% of this book gave that to me. So I felt comfortable, like, okay, I'm gonna stick with it. This was just not good. The female main character is named Grace, and she randomly picks an Airbnb in Wyoming, like a ranch to go to. I'm not sure if it's called a farm or a ranch, or if they're the same thing, but it's a ranch in Wyoming. And the host is named Calvin, and he has his own plans for her, you know. Calvin is very Joe Goldberg incel coded. And I think I've said incel like a million times in this, but these men are incels, okay? There are 1,005,000 tropes in this book. Like, every trope in the world is in this book, and none of them were done well. I am very confused about this book because, like I said, I really loved One of Us is Dead. This was not Geneva Rose's best work, and I don't know if One of Us is Dead was the anomaly and this is actually how she writes, but this was not good. I cannot recommend this to anyone. I gave this 2 stars, and the only reason why it's not a 1 star is because I have a really hard time, and I'm gonna be honest, I have a very hard time rating authors poorly who I have loved in the past. So just know that this is probably a 1 star, but I gave it 2 stars because I try to be nice sometimes. And the final book I'm going to be talking about today is a huge chunk. Okay, it's a big girl. And it is Anastasia by Sophie Lark. It is huge. Like, this is just huge. This is almost 700 pages. This is the first romantasy I've read. I read fantasy when I was in high school, like Twilight. I read Blue Bloods. I read Vampire Diaries, which, I mean, those are all like vampire, but still, like, aren't vampires fantasy? Let me know. I might be doing this whole fantasy thing wrong, but I committed myself to getting back into fantasy, and for some reason I'm insane, and I picked the biggest book in the world to introduce me to that. I really enjoyed this book, you guys. I have talked about before, I absolutely loved Anastasia when I was little. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. I still love it to this day. This is a complete reimagining of Anastasia in general, the Romanovs in general. I'm not gonna hold this book up because it's huge and it's heavy. So in this book, everyone has powers, and there are certain powers that only the Tsar could have. And Anastasia, out of all of her siblings, is the one who has this power. So now her brother Alexei, who's in line to be the Tsar, she is the one who has this power. And Rasputin somehow has multiple powers. He's brought into the Romanov court by a family friend, and he tells the family he can heal Alexei. Because they were inbreeding, they had I think some of the girls had the carrier trait, the mom had the carrier trait, but the brother was actually sick. He had some kind of blood clotting disease. I forget what it's called, but basically he would just bleed all the time, and he would bruise really easily and just bleed. And no healer could heal him. Like, they brought in so many different healers, no one could heal him except Rasputin. And Rasputin makes it known to them that these treatments that he's doing for Alexei are not eternal. Like, he will have to top them up every now and then. So he is granted full access to court. Like, he's allowed to live on the court grounds. I don't know. Like, he's allowed to live like near the family on the little Romanov compound of the castle court. Like I said, this is a romantasy. There is a man named Damien who's a Cossack, which I looked them up because because I'm so smart, I thought that Cossack was a play on John Cusack, who played Dmitri in the movie. That's not what that is. The Cossacks were real people, but they were people who left their land and came to the Cossack village, and Tsar Nicholas really wanted to be in charge of them. And so he was constantly trying to find ways to make that group of people be under his power. And Damien is a Cossack, and obviously Anastasia and the Cossacks are at odds because her father is a dictator and they got beef, okay? Somehow, I made a joke when I was talking to my sister about this book that I really, really enjoyed the magic in this book and the fantasy aspect, but the greatest magic trick of all was the fact that Damien and Anastasia went from being enemies to friends to lovers almost entirely off page. Like, where, how? I was so confused, okay? Didn't buy their romance, and I wish I did, because the last like 30% of the book really nurtures their relationship and really, like, it tries really hard to make you care about these characters who felt like absolute strangers, because to me they did not have a romantic like connection. I don't know how to explain that better, but the romance was just not well done, which is weird because I think that Sophie Lark is a romance author. And this was her first kind of splash into fantasy and romantasy. Fantasy was so good, like so good, so good. I wish I could find a better word than good, but the action, the magic, the everything, like, it was so good. I can't even like talk about it because some parts of the magic is a spoiler, and I don't want to spoil things in my reviews, even though I have spoiled a lot of the books today. I would recommend you to read this book on your phone or your tablet, just because there is over 100, I think, 100 pieces of art is how I'm going to say that. It's 2:45 in the morning, so we're going to act like I know how to speak. But imagine seeing this art in color. And I'm going to put some, pieces of art up here, but absolutely gorgeous art. However, I have to make a critique on the book, which is also a semi-critique on the art, but not the illustrator. Anastasia is described as being pale, as having red hair, as having blue eyes. Damien is described as like being tan, having scars. Like I said, I haven't read fantasy in a long time, and I have watched people review popular fantasy like Fourth Wing and ACOTAR, and there is a complaint that authors, white authors specifically, are writing tan male main characters who are just tan. and have scars. If we get to know like what exactly the female main character looks like, and she's always so pale and her eyes are always so blue, why don't we get to know that about the male main character? There is no explanation as to why he goes from looking like this to this. Like, Ariana Grande, is that you? Is that you, Ariana? What are you doing here?
Ariana, what are you doing here?
And like I said, the art is really beautiful. I'm not faulting the illustrator. I'm faulting, I guess, Sophie Lark, because if Damien was supposed to be this dynamic character that we're supposed to care about, we should know what he looks like. The only two characters in this book who are fully developed are Anastasia and Rasputin. Y'all, Rasputin is genuinely scary in this book, and I absolutely loved it. I absolutely loved learning about Rasputin. I also loved learning about Anastasia. We get to experience Anastasia as a child, and in real life, I think she passed away when she was 17. But at the end of this book, she's like, I want to say she's either 19 or 21. We get to experience like the full spectrum of her life and then some. So I really enjoyed that. The world building in this book was crazy good. There are a number of things about this book that are done really, really well. Just the romance was not. And I could have honestly done without Damien except for his power, but I didn't need them to be in love. Those are all the books that I read in November. Those were 11 books total. While I didn't love all the books that I've read, I had a good time reading this month, and I was really consistent at picking up books, which is something I struggle with. I was very proud of myself. I really, really appreciate you for watching. Thank you for sticking with me. It's almost 3 in the morning, so I'm gonna edit this and hopefully get it up. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye.